In 1914, the Great War, also known as World War I, had begun. It became defined by trenches, gas, biplanes, and the mass destruction in its wake. But one event has been lost to the pages of history. It's the Christmas Truce of 1914.
When the war broke out in August 1914, the war is said to be a big adventure. So many people think that around Christmas everything will be over. When Christmas arrives, so soldiers begin to imagine that it will not be finished at Christmas because they're in a ditch or in a trench somewhere.
We came up to take over the trenches on the front between Freilingen and Hopling, where our regiment and the Scottish Seaforth Highlanders were face to face. It was a cold, starry night, and the Scots were 100 or so meters in front of us in their trenches where, as we discovered, like us, they were up to their knees in mud. My company commander and I, savoring the unaccustomed calm, sat with our orderlies around a Christmas tree we had put up in our dugout. Lieutenant Johann Niemann, 133rd Royal Saxon Regiment.
The Christmas truce, it came quite naturally. It's sometimes hard to explain. Nothing was prepared. Also, the Christmas truce in some areas here around lasted until the 10th of January. Of course, they didn't meet 10 days long or 15 days long in the field, but it was 10, 12 days ceasefire. There's some stories about, you can read in diaries, that the Germans are dropping a stone wrapped with paper in the British trench. And they're saying we have an officer coming tomorrow for inspection, so maybe we could have to fire. So keep your heads down and we'll fire high enough.
Right.
So that was the beginning of what was called then later live and let live.
On Christmas Eve there was a lull in the fighting. The Germans had a Christmas tree in the trenches and Chinese lanterns all along the top of a parapet. Eventually the Germans started shouting, "Come over, I want to speak to you." Our chaps hardly knew how to take this, but one of the nuts belonging to the regiment got out of the trench and started to walk towards the German lines. One of the Germans met him about halfway across, and they shook hands and became quite friendly. So more of them took it in turns to go and visit the Germans. The officer commanding would not allow more than 3 men at a time. I went out myself on Christmas Day and exchanged some cigarettes for cigars. And this game had been going on from Christmas Eve till midnight on Boxing Day without a single round being fired. Gunner Herbert Smith, 5th Battery, Royal Field Artillery.
It's quite nice to be in a trench and nobody will fire on you if you're going to walk a bit further or if you light a cigarette and also the guys should have to bring some food from the rear.
Right.
Quite every night. You're supplied with food, with water, with tea, with everything. So these guys also, it's a lot easier to walk to the front line if you're sure that nobody's firing on you. So something is installing himself. And that's why on some places it lasted quite long. And then once headquarters on both sides see what happens and they really active do something, like let the artillery firing or moving regiments, and then the truce stopped.
As the war raged on, the Christmas Truce of 1914 became a distant memory, but it is the only time in history where a war was put on hold.